Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of
Teach, Sleep, Repeat.
My name is Hayden.
Oh,
And your name is Dylan. Oh,
well, that confused
that
me.
was fun, wasn't it?
You knew what I was going to say, and
did.
you knew I'd say my own name.
I'm Dylan.
Wow. And I'm Hayden. Thanks
And
for joining us.
We do the same intro every single week because we lack imagination.
We used to do little skits if you go back and listen to our first series, and then we ran out of ideas after about 15 episodes.
If you've managed to get this far, you clearly weren't here for the skits because they've not existed in about 6 months. They've not existed, weirdly, roughly the same age as my son. Since they...
Why did we stop?
Oh, it turns out my brain went to mush. How are you?
Yeah, my brain is mush.
Is it?
Yeah.
Well, you've been quite ill.
Long day, long week.
Long day.
Long day at week.
That's the same thing for you, a day in a week,
Long
isn't
week
it?
at work, you know.
Go on, tell everyone what happened.
Well, I had a whole day in this week, so.
It was so funny. I asked you to tell it. I'm immediately going to cut in.
Yeah,
So
that's
I do.
weird.
Yeah,
Not like Dylan, is it?
It's weird for me to talk over Hayden.
Yeah, I can make a compilation.
Yeah.
A compilation of that.
What's really strange as well.
There you go.
What's really strange is I try and butter it up as like me having some kind of point. But really, I just don't want to listen to it. This is your voice. It's too much in this two-person podcast.
It's like when we prepare for these episodes. If we're looking up something, we're doing a bit of research or whatever. Honestly, if we don't find the answer summarized nicely within 10 seconds, it's like, I can't find it. I'm getting fed up of this, and I can't read more than a line.
Listen. Why don't we just do a podcast where we just say what we think and not back it up with anything
That's
at
what
all?
we've done that for 2 seasons and 20 episodes. That's what we're on now. No, that doesn't make sense.
No.
We're on season 2, episode 20.
Yeah, gosh.
So.
Baby brain, by the way. It's not just a phenomenon.
A thing.
Yeah, a thing. It's not just the thing for the women who give birth. Clearly, that's a big thing. I thought it was a chemical thing people talked about. Your hormones change and stuff. No, it's apparently for the blokes as well who just... Yeah. I've also lost my
Because we
mind.
were babies once.
Yeah.
And we've had it since then.
Exactly, because men's brains don't work too good. I'll do a repetitive thing over and over, but if I have to think for longer than 10 minutes, boop, beep, boop, boop. Where are the nappies? I do not know.
Anyway, back to my week, Dylan.
How was your week,
Crikey,
pal?
I've been poorly.
Oh, going on and on.
We've had the flu.
You have
We've
the
had
whole
the
house
flu.
or just
whole
you?
house. Lauren had it first. I think she caught it from you, Lauren.
I don't know because they're different symptoms, but maybe.
Yeah. I don't know. We all got sick at the same time anyway. It doesn't matter, does it? But Lauren got sick, and then I knew I was going to get it as well. And we were just worried about River getting sick, and obviously she ended up getting it as well. So she's been really poorly, bless her.
That is something, isn't it? Because obviously they're both our firstborns, and Rory's been ill as well. It's horrible when they get their first illness.
It is nasty.
You expect it, but it's not nice.
It's the main thing is like she'll be fine. Like she'll get over it. Everyone gets ill. It's just the fact that she can't breathe properly.
I know
because they can't. They're not very good at breathing. Apparently, for the first 3 months, they just. I looked it up and it's like, they only breathe through their nose. My next thing I looked up was why. Why is that? They got a massive mouth. Can they just breathe through that?
They can't run, walk, or talk, or do anything when they're born. And by the way, they're bad at breathing, which is just the only thing they have to do. Oh, they're bad at that, are they? Cool.
Got a bunged up nose.
Oh, and breastfeeding's tough. Oh, okay. Are they ready at 9? Should we just not do 9 months? Should we do 12 months?
Can they do anything?
Could they do literally anything? No. Okay. That's fine.
Can't see either.
That deer's run off. How old's that deer? 2 hours. All right. Yeah.
Have you ever seen a baby giraffe or something like that?
Yeah, it's just straight up.
Immediately gone.
See you, mum.
Anyway,
Nice,
so it's been poorly. Rory's been poorly as well, obviously. Yeah. Is he better now? Because I think you got poorly a few days
He sounds
before.
better, but it's the nose thing. We can blow our nose. A baby is just like, my only passage for air blocked.
Yeah. We've been trying the snot sucker.
Yeah, it doesn't. But
it's rubbish.
It's like when it works, it's good. But for us, it works like 1 in 5.
Yeah.
Like apart from that, it just he hates it as well. He doesn't sit still remotely when you're trying to do it. Saline spray seems to work.
Yeah,
a little bit.
I'm just imagining, thinking, imagine someone pinning you down and putting a tube on your nose and just sucking the other end. You'd be like, get off.
I quite like it.
Horrendous. Oh. Do you want me to do it?
Yeah, go on.
Live on the podcast? That'll get the people viewing.
Yeah, we do record these, by the way, video. Anyone who listens on audio.
If you're listening in your car, you might have one of those screens where you can put... No, I'm joking. Don't put us on. Don't put us on.
Sorry.
I just wanted his reaction.
Is that what it's like when someone interrupts you? I didn't enjoy that. None of you interrupted me. You're telling them to break the law.
Yeah, no, wherever you are, pop us on your screen.
We're both looking, I must say, a bit crap today. A bit dishevelled, a bit tired.
Yeah,
it's been a long old week for you, Hayden.
Holding in a cough.
One day in school. So you went back. Were the kids happy to see you?
Yeah, the funny thing. So the first thing I heard when I walked in during Breakfast Club was, "Blue Shirt Man's back." like,
Were you wearing your blue shirt?
Yeah, of course. What do you mean?
What do you mean? It's my uniform. I only wear one shirt to work.
I only have 3 shirts. They're all blue. Yeah. So I was like, brilliant. Turned back around, went home.
I want to dive deeper a bit here on this catch up because I know a lot of people listening feel the same way. Obviously, definitely in school and some outside of school as well. But I think as a teacher's point of view, I feel like this is very much a teacher thing. When you're ill or absent, it does feel like you put a big load on your team around you. And I'm sure that happens in all jobs, but it feels like with teaching especially, you can't not have those 32 kids in. So someone has to cover them and teach them. But also, you can't prep anything. You can't mark anything. You can't do anything. How does that feel for you? Because obviously you're constantly off because you're a Skyber. So how does that affect you? Do you feel morally bad?
I felt terrible about being ill. I felt really bad. So, because the last time I was off was paternity leave.
Sure.
And it just happened to be that we were doing a mock SATs. So I teach year 6 for anyone that doesn't listen before, which obviously you
we know. Honestly, these year 6 teachers.
Go
By the
on.
way, I teach year 6. Okay.
I can't. I'm doing SATs. So yeah, the last time I was off paternity leave was mock SATs.
Yeah.
And I've got top sets across the board, so they're completely maxed out sets.
Sure.
So most kids in my classes. So all the other teachers had to pick up all my marking and gap analysis, and it takes forever.
Yeah.
And I felt really bad. And then obviously I was off this week, and guess what we're doing? We were doing test week again.
Yeah. Well, it's year 6, so every other week's test week, isn't it? So,
yeah, true. Yeah. So I felt really, really, really bad, and I got you to bring home all the test papers. And honestly, I'm not joking. I'm not just trying to exaggerate. Like, oh, look at me. I reckon I spent a whole day's worth working.
During the
2 days off, across the 2 days, I definitely spent at least 10 hours marking tests and gap analysis.
No
100%,
way.
100%.
Really?
100%.
Are you doing that thing where it's like it felt like 10 hours?
No, it was because I sat down at a certain time and then I didn't finish until I went to bed.
And you didn't stop that whole time? This is what I
bits.
mean, because I do this a lot and I'm like, I spent all day doing it and actually I spent 3/4.
I'm sure I wasn't very efficient,
Sure.
but I did, that was all I was doing.
Yeah,
okay.
Okay. Crazy.
But the problem is I've got, 32 kids in English doing reading papers.
Full reading paper.
And they all got like 40 plus out of 50. So they're answering everything.
Oh, I just slipped that in, by the way.
Yeah, they didn't all get it, really. They didn't all get it. But a lot of them, more than half are smashing out these marks. Oh, man. Anyway, so yeah, I did feel bad. And I ended up taking on a lot of work when realistically in any other job, if you're sick, you just stay off and rest. And I still felt pretty ill yesterday, but I thought I can't have 3 days off. That's terrible. So I came in anyway and then ended up feeling worse.
Yeah, it's really annoying because it's definitely true that I don't think I've ever returned to work when actually my illness is over.
No.
And I think that's just a hangover because to me, it takes a lot for me to call in. And I know for you as well. And for most people, especially when you work in a school and you have those kids every day, you miss that chunk of learning. There's nothing I like less than it leaving cover for any reason. Even when I've got training or I've got a meeting or something, it's frustrating because you are so embedded in that procedure of day 1 to day 2 to day 3, building up stuff. Even if someone does a fantastic job, which no doubt they will in the meantime, it still wasn't you delivering it. You still don't have that invaluable knowledge of where your kids are because marking the books only gives you so much. Even if you went back and flicked through their book, I think it highlights how ineffective marking is because nothing will come close to just being in the room and teaching them.
So you don't like being off?
I hate being off.
Is that why you went part-time?
Yes.
There's a clip right there. I'll set you up.
I just hate Hayden. I'm there for the progress. Monday to Tuesday to Wednesday, but not Wednesday to Thursday.
No, that doesn't count. They're done by Wednesday. It's hump day, isn't it? They're done.
Listen, I tell you what though, Thursday mornings are my favourite morning now because obviously we're not in work. We got a bit more flexible in terms of our business and when we do work and stuff. And Rory just sits on me for an hour in the morning. Aww. And I'm like, I would be in registration right now and I'd be stressing about getting maths done. So that time's really precious. So I do appreciate it.
Have you started teaching about like tax returns and things?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So if anyone doesn't know, I'm a bit scatty. I mean, you probably know by now how long we're into this thing. I mean, I'm sure I've mentioned it before. I'm not neurotypical. So basically, we have to pay our tax returns. Hayden.
For God's sake.
What?
You just every year just pay
I know. So Hayden is very organised with our accountant. He'll send things he needs to send. The accountant will do the reports for us. Literally like what we pay him for, so he does all the hard work and he'll just send us back a number that we have to go online and pay and so obviously Hayden does it immediately because he's normal and Hayden will message me going, right, you've got to pay X amount of money By the end of January, I stopped reading then. I'm like, huh? By the end of it's not the end of January, so it's just not important right now. And you sent me another message 3 days later going, remember, pay your tax return. This is like January the 10th or something. And I'm like, yeah, don't worry about that. That'll get done.
You replied to me. You said,
what did I say?
Message me on Jan 31st.
Oh, yeah, because I was
like,
joking.
no,
yeah,
I'm not doing it again.
So you said, listen, I could tell you're actually annoyed. You're like, this is the last time I'm telling you now. I'm not going to tell you again.
This takes less than 60 seconds.
It did.
Please just do it. Right, you're messaging me on your phone.
End of Jan?
Just do it now.
I'll do it the end of Jan then. So January 30th rolls around. Got 1 day left. And it's not an insubstantial amount of money like that we've got to pay. So I'm like, okay, I don't know where the limit is for like clearing and stuff and like how long it takes to go through. And I was like, should probably do it, shouldn't I? The day before the 31st. Did it all perfect, no problem. And then we were talking to our friend who we arranged for going out for a curry. When this comes out, we'd have already been out for that curry. With our other teacher friend, works in a different school. We train with him. And I was tasked with booking the restaurant. And I could just tell straight away, Hayden was like, for God's sake.
Yeah, I already knew
this isn't going to get booked then. Just keep putting it off. So I said in the chat, by the way, guys, booked it for 7 p.m. And Hayden was like, no, you haven't, basically. You're like, okay, yeah, is that with your tax return that you've not done? And I was like, did them both, one after the other, just in time, actually. So I'm feeling quite proud of myself. Yeah, an hour ago. It was literally just before. But listen, why are we sweating the small stuff? And it's not like I've missed deadlines before.
No, it's not. That's what I get PTSD about because you've done it in the past. You've missed you've had a fine because you missed the payment.
What's a little bit of not paying tax between friends? And do you know that year I got a fine, by the way?
Yeah,
was the first year of the business where we didn't make enough money to even pay any tax, right?
Oh yeah, that's right.
All we had to do was submit a tax return saying that I wasn't paying anything.
Yeah.
I missed that deadline, so I don't think we had a proper accountant then.
Yeah, you didn't do it.
I missed that deadline, didn't do it, and I got fined £100 to pay no tax.
Yeah.
I got fined £100 because I didn't say in time that I wasn't paying any pounds.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, that's annoying.
Yeah. So if you're starting a business, it's pretty normal, by the way. First year we made no money. Yeah, it's good fun though.
And then wait, we're still not making any money.
Wait, are we not doing business right?
Wait a minute. You meant to make money in a business?
No.
You meant to make money off a podcast?
No. We don't make any money.
No, sponsored by
Needs Financial Planning.
James, if you're listening, what a fantastic service you run. But the sponsorship we've got with Need Financial Planning, we haven't actually received anything yet. It's weird.
Weird.
Use the code #TopDog to get 10% off all of James's services. Don't.
This is not real.
This isn't real.
This is not real. We're gonna get James in trouble. He's a financial advisor.
He would advise me to pay my tax much earlier.
Yeah.
Maybe I need financial planning. Thanks, James. He's not an accountant. Gets very annoyed if anyone calls him an accountant.
No, he's not.
Because it's not. It's different. It's like calling a teacher a professor. Basically the same. But
so accountants are. He's an accountant then.
He's going to be fuming if he's listening to this.
Yeah. I'll tell you what though, I do love James.
Yeah, he's a lovely
nice
man.
guy.
He's a
nice
lovely guy. And sorts out your finances, all jokes aside.
He
So
did.
if you remortgaging, it's a bit of a tumultuous time, go and talk to Need Financial Planning. Great guy. Anyway, jokes aside, all of that, I want to finish off this. Couple of things. Number one, I'm using Learning by Questions in school. Fantastic resource. I don't really want to go too much into it again, but another thing, like if you're listening to this and your school's thinking, should I try a free trial of Learning by Questions? Just do it. If you've got really iPads, laptops, it's a bit complicated at first, I felt, but you have a courtesy call with the people who train you on what to do. And at this point, it runs itself with my groups, with my kids that I have. And it's linked to White Rose, it's linked to Maths Mastery, it's linked to the National Curriculum.
Right, 30-second summary. What is it? Why is it
good? Basically, you can go online, you can find individual small steps for maths lessons. But not only maths, it has English, science, geography, and history. So it's branched out. I use it for maths personally. I think it's really good for maths. Very small steps. You can go in and you can track your children on each question on a very clear spreadsheet on your screen. So you can see who's getting what right, who's getting it wrong, who's taking more than one attempt, who's trying again. You can go around the room, intervene and say, okay, well, I see you're struggling with this one. Let's work on a whiteboard together. Then you can try it again. My 30 seconds is up, apparently. Hayden's giving me the watch. Basically, go and give it a go. It's a really cool resource. It's very straightforward. And I'd say within 2 sessions, my year 4s completely understood it and knew what to do.
Brilliant.
And they were off doing it. And you just set tasks that you pick as a teacher. Sponsored by Need Financial Planning.
Learning by Questions.
No, it's a great resource. And the last thing, before we do crack on.
Oh, here we go. Yep.
Just a little check because we had a little bit of a bet, didn't we? But I'm a bit annoyed that we didn't do any kind of forfeit because we said at the start of the year we're going to both have something we're aiming to do every single day of the year. The person who lasts the longest wins.
Yep.
Hayden's was to do a fasting diet, which works for him, where he eats for an 8-hour window in the day, and then for 16 hours he doesn't. I was to cut out sugar completely in terms of, added sugar. We're talking chocolate. Not crisps. I've eaten a few crisps. Not much sugar in crisps. That's the one thing, by the way, that's helped me get through. I've had the odd crisp. But no chocolate. Anyone who knows me, no fizzy drink. Nothing that's got packed with sugar. Just meals and no snacks like that. Fruit for snacks and stuff. And I think you got a bit of news, have you?
Well, I've been ill this week.
Okay. Well, that's irrelevant. Go on. Not really relevant, though, is it?
I crumbled.
Yeah.
I crumbled this
Apple
week.
crumbled.
I ate both mornings on Monday and Tuesday.
Yeah, you didn't tell me though, did you?
No,
did tell me until a few minutes ago.
Yeah, not right now. Yeah. Telling you right now. Yeah, I crumbled. I'm a bit ashamed.
Yeah. Should be.
But
pathetic, really.
I don't want it to be over.
It's
pathetic. I feel like no, it's not pathetic. It's
normal.
It's noble.
It's how you come over your adversity.
Humble. I wanted you to win.
Yeah. Humble crumble.
Humble crumble.
Thank you.
I had some humble crumble. Lovely. Anyway, but in all seriousness, you're doing really, really well on this thing because
don't look down on what you said.
You've lost a bit of weight, haven't you?
Yep.
Haven't you? Oh, flexing. He's got his abs out.
Ah, what?
Yeah. Was that?
Yeah.
Just so you know, before we started this podcast, he was standing right. If you're watching, he was standing right there where my hand is, just here behind where the microphones are, with his t-shirt up.
Just showing everyone
to his breasts.
Yep.
Jiggling his belly in my head.
Wouldn't call them breasts, but
jiggling his belly in my face. So,
it's still there.
But
it's smaller.
Yeah. But I don't want to give this up. So basically, you're doing really well. I don't want the challenge to end because
it's already ended, so we're starting a new challenge.
No, new challenge. All right, you win the first round. Not
1-0. 1-0.
Battle.
January win. What's February?
All right, February. I'm going to join you.
Okay.
I'm going to do no sugar.
Yeah. I don't think you're last.
Yeah, I mean, I already gave up this morning.
Yeah, wait a minute. Sorry.
No.
Go on. I'll come to the end. Don't worry.
I said to me and Lauren last night, we're like, right, God, we're
in the group chat. No, we're in the group chat.
Well, me and Lauren were also talking last night.
Okay.
And we were saying, we're getting fat. Like, come on, we got to sort ourselves out.
Yeah.
And Lauren was like, right, let's do this. Let's do no sugar. Because I mentioned about maybe in February joining you on the no sugar thing anyway.
Sure.
And she was like, cool. And I was like, okay, right, we've got a little Easter egg downstairs and one of those little caramel eggs left. I think other than that, there's no sugar left in our house. So we just, once they're gone, we'll start.
Oh, what about the 500 gram pack of sugar?
You have to damn that. Goes says Lauren eating the caster sugar, like,
it's January.
Leaves the light brown sugar out for me. Like, that's not nice.
Oh, Demerara.
Oh man, it's crunchy. But Lauren, obviously being a normal human, was like, no, February 1st today, so we'll just stop eating sugar. And I'm like, I can't possibly do it, knowing that's in the house. She was like, okay, I'll hide it. And I was like, no, I'll get rid of it another way. And I ate the whole thing this morning.
So no sugar February. That ended at 9 a.m. on February the 1st.
No, it starts after the sugar's gone. Right? It starts now.
All right.
It starts now.
Start now. This is a real quiz.
Starts
This is a real quiz. Cool.
Starts now. So anyway, right, we've been waffling on for 20 minutes again. What are we doing?
I don't know. But I did have someone message saying, let us know how the kids getting on. It's been a while.
Well, they're both really poorly. So.
Yeah, nice one. Thanks. Let's do the jingle, shall we? And get into the question. Bye. Welcome back. Thanks for waiting. Such a long little jingle. Anyway, we're going to go straight into this really deep question and a really important question on the lips of lots of educators, which is simply, is Ofsted actually about to be fixed? Is it about to get better? It's a big thing we want as educators, and I would say since the strikes last year, big things on the forefront of people's minds. The horrific case of Ruth Perry and her taking her own life, and the coroner's report since inextricably linking the Ofsted visit to her school with her taking her own life. And for that to be in a coroner's report, I think was a big kick up the backside for people to really take this seriously now. And it's such a horrific shame that it took something that serious for them to take it, to try and do something.
It takes the speculation out as well, doesn't it? Because people, obviously people always go, oh no, there was other stuff going on. It wasn't that. Well, actually, this report now is confirming it.
And exactly that. And I think it's really frustrating sometimes as teachers, just in general, when we're not taken seriously as people on the front line, when we're on the front line delivering lessons saying, oh, I don't have this thing. This is really hard for me to do my job unless I have this thing. Or, head teachers across the land saying, Ofsted's one-word judgments don't work. This is really stressful and it's not helping me at all. I think it's easy to bat that off. And it's just a shame it took this horrible incident of Ruth Perry for it to be like, oh, is it not working? No. And that it took that much for us to be taken seriously.
Yeah, it's a shame.
So before, Hayden, we just crack into another committee report because it was set up last year, I think, in response to all of that. It's really promising, the reports. We'll go into detail in a minute. But I think for all the listeners right now, whether they're teachers or not, I want you to try and just summarize. What is it like as a teacher and someone, we're close with a lot of SLT members as well, so people in charge of a school, with the current way that Ofsted is ran? Why is it a problem? Why is it causing such an issue?
Sure. Well, I will give a bit of a summary, but just a pre-thing. We did do a whole episode on our experience of Ofsted. So we were Ofsted not too long ago, a few months ago. And season 2, episode 7 is about our experience of Ofsted. So if you do want even more information just about how, what it's like to be Ofsteded, do go back and watch that episode. It's a juicy one. But in that episode, we did talk about some of the issues. And I think the biggest thing for me, and it's really nice because you'll see later on that some of these things are addressed in this committee report. Biggest thing for me was the fact that schools are judged with one word. I really, 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 really hated that. So going through the Ofsted experience, knowing that after all this hard work, years of hard work we're talking here between inspections, years and years and years of hard work, culminating to this big day, one word, good. It's all right. Outstanding, great, brilliant, we're outstanding, okay. Requires improvement. It's like, okay. The whole everything about this school now is culminated with these one word or 2 word judgments. So that's my biggest gripe with Ofsted. What about you?
Yeah, I think that's a huge thing, and that's one of the biggest things to come out of this big push is to get rid of the one word judgments. I think I'm going to just expand on what you said there about one word judgments, because for anyone involved in Ofsted, you'll know that it's a 2-day. It's a 2-day job. They come in for 2 days, these inspectors, and they'll talk to multiple leaders across the school. We led maths. We talked about maths. Again, you want to know exactly what happens during an Ofsted inspection, go and listen to the episode. We're not going into that detail now. But I think what really shocked me was when the report came out at the end. Obviously, we got the overall judgment. It's public now. We got a good judgment. We're very happy with a good judgment. Perfect. But then you read the report, and although good is fine, it's fantastic. It's what we're aiming for. We have a really lovely school. When you read the report, it's very curt, very short, very matter of fact, which I understand because, you probably had another inspection the week after, and it's a lot to get through. But I felt a little bit underwhelmed at the amount of detail in the report because I think we did a lot of stuff really well. And I think the inspector was really impressed with a lot of stuff. And I would say, from my point of view, if you're looking at a spectrum, because a good school is not the same as another good school, is not the same as another good school. There's obviously going to be a bit of a range there as to what constitutes a good school. We know from conversations and things that he talked to us about that we were very much on the cusp of an outstanding school. That we had a lot of outstanding elements to what we were doing. And as maths leads in the room with him, I know that we answered all of his questions appropriately, and any kind of things he wanted to find out if we were making sure we had provisions for this or that, we had them in place and he could see them.
Yeah. He was content with all of our answers and what he saw.
Yeah, and I think after the whole maths talk, he was very much thinking, this has outstanding elements for sure. Not remotely reflected, I don't think, in the report.
No.
And I think what's really important.
Well, maths wasn't. So in the
one
report,
sentence.
It was tagged onto the end of one sentence. It wasn't even the
a
sentence.
clause
wasn't even about
in a sentence.
It was like there were lots of good elements about the school, particularly in maths. That was all it was.
Yeah, and
that culminated everything we did.
Yeah, 3 words for it to be like, we're with him for 3 hours, and we saw 7 different classes, and we talked about assess, and we talked about catch up for COVID, and we talked about all this stuff. I think if you were to flip the coin over and we had a negative experience. I think that's equally terrible, if not worse. When I say equally, I mean it's equally vague, therefore worse. Because if you've got requires improvement, for example, if you were then to read the report, it might be a bit like, well, we had so much stuff that was good. We had so much stuff that he was really impressed with. It just so happened that XYZ we need support with. Now we're labelled as a requires improvement school. So as a parent coming in, it requires improvement. God, my kid really needs support with maths. Maths was fine. Wouldn't know that. Maths was fine. History was brilliant. English, it's just a reading, and it's such an important thing that doesn't require improvement.
It'd almost be like going, in secondary school when you get, and maybe even some primary schools, I don't know how it works, but in secondary school, definitely you get end of year reports, right, for kids, sometimes even mid-year reports, and it's usually broken down by subject because there's different teachers. It'd be like getting your kids' end of year report, it might be like their GCSE year, something really important, A-levels, whatever, and it's just a one-page report that just goes, pretty good, across the board, it's all right. Needs to work on history a bit though. And if they're really bad at history, saying, they do need to get better. At what? They just need, that kid needs to get better at history.
No, it doesn't even say because the whole school's
how are they in maths? Well, I don't know. It just says particularly good in the other subjects.
It's crazy.
It'd be like that. You wouldn't be satisfied, would you?
No, because that is one word for the whole school. We'd never describe a child by one word.
No.
Never. And we wouldn't get away with it.
No.
Absolutely.
Expected.
Yeah.
Greater depth.
Yeah, but that's not enough. That's not enough, is
No,
it?
I know.
And we get it broken down for every subject, and we have to write a report. That's
Yeah,
a statutory, a statutory requirement.
We get standardized scorings that breaks it down even further as well.
Yeah. So I think the one word thing is the biggest thing, but I would also say, and this is again, we're going to come on to this when we look at the committee report, because it is quite promising, I think, the report, but I still think there's going to be some differences between you and I about how useful some of it will be. Another big thing that a lot of people talked about of Ofsted and why it's such a problem at the minute is the unexpected nature of it. There is this culture in schools. If you know that you're in the Ofsted window, and when we say a window, for anyone who doesn't know, it's not like a school gets a 2-month window and it could be any time. So we don't know, like between January and February 25, we're going to, no, we don't know at all when we're going to get Ofsteded. It's just off a feeling. Well, it's usually about 3 or 4 years. It's done a local school that it did before us last time. So maybe the cycle's coming around. Yeah. If you're in that window, there is absolutely no way of knowing when Ofsted will come. And the way Ofsted do this is they will call your school I think it's in the morning time by like 2:00. And I remember our head saying it got past 2:00 each day. And he'd be like, oh, okay, well, it's not tomorrow.
Yeah.
So it's on our minds so much. Mad. And we don't have anything to do with that. How do you think that would affect a school?
I find it really tough because I think I've been totally indoctrinated into the idea of it needs to be like that, so that you get a real reflection of the school, and that, if you give a school 2 months, they might be that they're terrible for 4 years, not doing the right things, and then when they know they got 2 months, it's like, okay, we can put all the stuff in place now superficially, and nothing's really embedded. But then the other part of me is like, yeah, well, if a good inspector would know that. A good inspector, if you give a school 2 months, a good inspector should be able to really, if they're good at their jobs, come in and tell the difference between two schools. One where all these great things have been embedded for 5 years, and one where these things have just been implemented in the last 2 months because they realise they're being Ofsteded. I think that a good inspector should be able to tell the difference. Yeah. So therefore, do we really need to cause all of the stress by giving schools a 24-hour window? Really? Like, what other job does that happen in?
I just don't think that even 2 months is enough to implement stuff that would pass you as a good school.
Not really, no.
It's
not properly. That's the point.
If you're coming from nothing to then being like, oh, well, God, we're in the window. Yeah. Gosh, we've been free. We better do something. You'll be found out.
Well, there was a complaint last year. I was in Ofsted. I think, again, following the whole Ruth Perry incident, where people were fed up with the 24-hour window and stuff. For Christ's sake, when are we going to get Ofsted? Because this window is painful. It can last for years.
Yeah, I remember.
And do you remember their response was, okay, yeah, fine. We'll let you know when it's going to happen by.
Yeah.
As if that helps.
So it would end up being a year window or something.
So then all the schools, so we thought, our school thought we were going to get Ofsted for like the last 2 years.
We were really excited. I went into our head teacher, I think, and we were like, they've released this thing now. We can look it up on the DFE. So we looked it up.
Find out when we're going to get Ofsted.
Yeah, by the end of 2025. and this was 2023, by the way. And we were like, oh, we knew that.
Oh, well, yeah.
Yeah, because we got last Ofsted in 2019 or 2018 maybe. Yeah. So we knew that. That's not remote. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so
good. So we can continue being stressed until 2025 now, at least.
But there have been some suggestions. Again, we'll come on to them later on. But I just think to kind of summarize from a teacher's point of view, the one-word system, it's not very helpful. I don't think that if you walk into a school, ask a teacher about the culture of waiting for the call. If you said to a teacher, what is the call in a school? they will absolutely know what you're talking about.
Well, when we had the call, I remember our office staff came round.
Oh, yeah, because I was on paternity.
Yeah, you were. Yeah, I was in the middle of an English lesson, and she just poked her head in and just said, we've had the call.
Yeah.
And then walked off. Yeah. And I literally, my heart immediately sank. Because I'm in the middle of teaching a lesson, and I'm thinking,
no one's going,
God.
What?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, is the bugman here for the for the kids to
see? Is it that enrichment activity that we haven't got?
No. So, I mean, I think it's completely broken. And I do think that it's important that we just get across, this has to happen. This has to happen. What we're about to go through right now, these changes, something needs to change. My biggest gripe, and I'm interested to see what you think, I really struggle to jump on board with the people who are on our side of this. Ofsted needs to change. There are a lot of people who've gone as far as to say Ofsted should be abolished. Ofsted, we shouldn't have that. We need trust as a profession. Personally, I do not agree with that. I think it's vital, particularly when it comes to safeguarding of children, that there is an external regulator holding us to the highest of standards, even in maths and English and science. I still think we need to be held to really high standards. I think the way it's happening is wrong and needs reform. Where do you stand with those people who say, do you know what, Ofsted, just bin it completely? I struggle with it. I can see where they're coming from, but I struggle with how that would work.
I'd like to think, because I actually have the same opinion as you there, I don't think we should get rid of it entirely, but I'd like to think that those people probably mean abolish it and replace it with a better trust-based system.
Sure.
I'd hope so. I don't know. I reckon if we had someone with that opinion, I reckon within 2 minutes of talking to them, they'd probably think, I don't completely want schools to have no accountability whatsoever. I just don't think the current system's working.
There's a lot of people who say something like, accountability should just be into school, between schools.
Right.
Certain schools that are performing well, completely, and it's at the whim then, isn't it, of certain members in positions of power.
I know it doesn't work because I know about writing moderations.
Sure.
I think we could talk about English and writing moderations in the future properly, but just a very, very quick analogy. Writing moderations are fast.
What are writing moderations?
So maybe you're not in teaching, or you're just not in a year that does writing moderations. But writing moderation is where teachers from different schools get together and literally look at the children's writing to make sure that the gradings are correct.
Because it's teacher assessed.
Because it's teacher. We don't have a writing test, unlike with the rest of the SATs, so maths and reading, GPS, that stuff. That's all tested. But writing isn't tested; it's assessed by teachers. So we get together and we look at it. But I've been to multiple moderations over my 9-year career, and they're all a joke. They are a joke. I'm not afraid to say it. They're just a complete joke. They're a farce. Because there'll be people on the table next to you who have just agreed. Maybe just two teachers are like that. Maybe they're mates. I don't know. Whatever. But they've just both looked at their writing. Maybe it's slightly below the standard it should be, but they both think that's okay. And they go, yeah, yours is fine. Mine fine. Yeah, yours is fine as well, mate. Well done. All yours, you got 100% expected. Well done. And then you're on a table with like the county moderator who's really strict.
Sure.
Knocking all your books down. No, they're not there yet. They're not yet.
They missed a comma, sorry, in that one place.
No. Have they got any use of semicolons to join two related clauses? Because I can't really see any. Well, unless they've got everything, they can't be expected.
Yeah. So I can't wait to the episode, the gist is I think it's really important to have an extremely well trained body holding us to high accountability that is has our well-being in mind as well.
That's my last point, actually. Sorry, really quick, because we're going to talk about the committee.
Of course,
One last gripe with Ofsted is pretty much that, which is not everyone's that well trained or specialised in certain areas. I know that we've spoken to people in the past who have been Ofsteded who have said, we had someone coming in looking at X subject, and they had absolutely no expertise or knowledge of that subject because they're actually the person for PE or maths. They're not the specialist for this one, and they didn't really know anything we were talking about. And then they had to give our school a judgment based on it because we were deep dived in this subject.
And it becomes malleable then based on how well the person talks it through.
Yeah, basically. And it's just it's like no, hang on, we need better trained staff. And I know that
it's really interesting, isn't it? We read it earlier.
A lot of this stuff is addressed. So should we jump into the committee
Let's do report? It. So just as a background, whilst Hayden gets up our notes on what the actual committee are suggesting. This committee was set up last year. It's another one of those cross-party committees. So you have MPs from different parties. This is not party political right now. This is actually some really good work in government. Some of the best work in government goes on in these committee meetings. You might see clips of them online where they question people and they get them in. Some fantastic work, but really good MPs. I think it's important to say that not all MPs are just these people who just got sleaze by and take money and stuff.
They're not all Tories.
We're getting...
I'm joking.
Don't, Aidan. But, they've done some really good work here, and it's nice to read because it's really partisan. It's not... There's no agenda here. And these committees put things forward to the government, and the government reply. And Ofsted as well will reply to this. So this is very much for the Department for Education and the government and for Ofsted. And what's really promising is Ofsted have already said they look forward to reading these reports in full.
Yeah, they've been quite...
And they will respond to everything. Because sometimes we've seen before last week when we talked, or the week before when we talked about workload reduction, the government kind of cherry-picked what they responded to and didn't respond to other stuff. Ofsted has said, we will respond to everything.
Well, think about last year as well, when these are initially put out by the unions, remember? I think we were in the Zoom call with the union. And the government were like totally like, no, we're not. It
was well-being reduction as well, wasn't it?
They were not. So they're a bit more progressive now, I guess. They're realising
but it was Ofsted who said they'll reply to it.
Right, of course.
So the DFE will reply to as and when. Yeah. But I do get this impression, and I'm going to hold out hope, and I don't like to judge people before they've done the job, that it does seem like he's taking this seriously, old Martin. So let's
old Martin Oliver.
I've forgotten his second
name already. Welcome to Ofsted.
So DFE and Ofsted should. That's how this starts from the committee, and it's just kind of put into bullet points. We're going to go through the main points.
They've gone straight in with a hook, haven't they? The first one. First one is the juiciest one. So we won't talk too much about it, but it's just So DfE and Ofsted should work together as a priority to develop an alternative to single phrase judgments. Get rid of single phrase judgments that better capture the complex nature of a school's performance.
Yeah, I mean,
wording.
We've kind of gone through it already. I think that's,
Yeah.
it's almost, I don't understand how someone can reply to that and not agree with it.
Yeah.
Because I've not seen yet from anyone an actual, a good defense of a one-word judgment.
Yeah.
I've seen people be like, judgments are important. It's like, yeah, cool. Not the point we're making.
Yeah.
Though.
Yeah.
The point is, one-word judgments are mad to me.
Yeah, they're the worst version of it. So we could have any judgment will be better than that.
Yeah,
basically.
yeah. I don't know what could replace it. Do you have any ideas?
I really like the idea. I've always liked this idea of getting rid of any actual like grading.
Sure.
In terms of like the set words
Sure.
or set numbers or whatever it is, and just responding to the school with an action plan, like a combined action plan. This is what we think the school can work on. This is what we want to see happen. Here's some priorities. Here's some things we're going to help you with. Because then the idea, a school that requires more improvement might just have more in that section of this is what we're going to intervene with and actually help the schoolers. Because we're Ofsted and we drive standards up. Like, they're supposed to get involved, right?
Yeah.
Rather than your school's rubbish or your school's great. Well done.
Yeah.
I think it needs to be, here's a detailed, action plan. Put it into your school improvement plan. We're going to monitor it over the next 3 years and help you.
Would you include good points in that as well then?
Yeah. Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
I think it needs to be a proper report.
Yeah.
Like here are loads of really good things about your school where we don't need to work on these now.
Sure.
Let's just leave that alone for a
So
bit.
do you think it's a case of then like changing the culture in terms of it's very, very normal for teachers and obviously parents even more so who have less of an idea. Parents go off, catchment areas. Oh, I'm in a good catchment area. I'm in an outstanding catchment area. That's that's the facade they go to. That's it. Which I understand why they're not experts in education. But even teachers will be like, oh, have you worked in an outstanding school before? Yeah, I've worked in a good school. Oh, actually, I was in a requires improvement school. It's going to take a lot for us to step away from that because what would it be replaced with? Would it be replaced with just, oh yeah, I work in a school?
Yeah, I think so. Genuinely, I think people's real opinions will come out.
Sure.
When you ask, well, where have you worked? Oh, I worked at a really lovely school before. They were so good at this, this, and this. I loved working at that school.
It's true because we've had it before where you might say, oh yeah, I've worked in an outstanding school, but everything you want to say about it from a point of view as a worker has been negative. And then you might say, I worked in a good school and it was unbelievable.
Yeah.
Or I worked in a requires improvement school and oh my gosh, the work we did with those kids, it was the best time of my life.
Because quite often requires improvement schools have lots of intervention put in place and they can end up becoming amazing schools because they required improvement at some point in the past. They're just still labelled as that.
So that flip, I think that move away from one-word judgments will absolutely, hopefully over time, it'll take a bit of time, but we'll flip that culture of actually, it's just an individual school. It's not a good school. It's not a requires improvement school. It's a school which is working really hard on this stuff and does this really well.
And if parents find it tricky with the whole, because they do people do quickly absorbing information. Like you wanted to see quick summaries of stuff. Yeah. Then I think there should just always be, as part of this process, you've got this big detailed plan with the school that could be pages and pages and pages.
A one-word judgment?
One-word judgment. No, just like a nice bullet pointed one-page summary. With here are some of the really nice things we saw about this school from Ofsted's point of view. Here are some things the school is working on. Parents make of that of what you will.
This is interesting. I'm going to jump on this then before we move on. If they're like saying let's get rid of one-word judgments, so let's dive a bit deeper. Would you then have no distinction between a school that is outstanding, good, fine, okay? Would you still have a distinction when it comes to oh dear, that's a safeguarding issue. This is really serious. This school needs us to step in and shut something down or okay, that needs to change immediately. Like without that one-word judgment, do you think it's still important though? Because to just keep that line of, okay, well, but if you're below this line, then that's a real problem.
I think sort of. I like the idea of actually just removing safeguarding from teaching and learning completely now.
Okay.
So it's like I think safeguarding should almost still be reported very, very, very strictly and harshly.
Sure.
On by itself, kind of like it is right now.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
I think
it overrides everything.
It almost needs to be a separate thing all the time. It can't just be bunged into one of the bullet points.
No.
So safeguarding is pretty good. I think it needs to be its own report every single time. This is the safeguarding procedures of the school. Here are the policies the school has in place. Here's what they do really well. Here's what we recommend they could do even better in the school for safeguarding. And that should always be a thing because it is just so important. Yeah. So important. But I feel bad for schools where perhaps the head teacher maybe is in charge of safeguarding because they quite usually are, or the deputy head or someone high up. and perhaps that element of the school's not very good, but the other 25 staff and 25 TAs and support staff, they've all been working extremely hard, and the children get an incredible education, and then the school requires improvement.
Yeah, because maybe even just the way you record something is quite wrong. It's
I feel bad for that.
Yeah.
So I think get rid of that one-word judgment, but have a report that makes it very clear safeguarding is a real issue in this school. There's a problem with safeguarding. But the teaching and learning is actually fantastic, and we're working on improving the safeguarding, but they get a good education.
Because safeguarding is different to English and maths. We're working on English and maths. I'd be like, okay, cool. We're working on safeguarding. I'd be like, what do you mean? Because that needs to be completely robust. So you're right. If it's separate, it's almost like it's like a very specific thing, which is it's irrelevant to how well their maths progress is.
Yeah.
Are they safe, these children? And is there things in place to make sure they remain safe? Yes or no?
Yeah.
If the answer is no, cool. Stop. We're going to fix this right now. This school has this problem.
Yeah.
That's okay to say. It could still be stressful. Sometimes things are stressful, but you do it with training. Yeah. You do it with compassion. You do it in a way that's helpful for the school, because at the end of the day, the only thing you really should care about is the safety of children, not there's no point making someone feel like crap constantly, or a whole school have this culture of worry. Be that help. Step in and say, okay, look, if this thing, the way you're recording these incidents isn't quite up to scratch because of X, Y, Z. Here's the training you need immediately. Off you go. We'll come back in a few weeks and we'll see if it's been implemented.
Yeah.
That to me is okay. Whereas that kind of idea with, your maths could be a bit better. You should be doing interventions with this. We're going to come back in 2 months and check. No, let them embed it. Give them the support. Let them have some time to do it. And it kind of links in with the next point, Hayden.
Yeah, no, but you go for it then.
Oh, okay. So this is interesting as well. Another thing the committee have said, work to reduce the frequency of inspections.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not sure where I stand with this, because I know of some schools who've been ages without an inspection, but this is interesting. Approximately 5 to 6 years for a good and outstanding school.
Yeah.
Approximately 3 to 4 years for a school that requires improvement or inadequate. That's something that's really interesting to me. 3 years for a requires improvement school rather than an immediate inspection. Check, check, check. Do you think that's going to be a benefit?
I think this is a terrible point.
Yeah.
I actually really, really, really disagree with this.
Okay, go on.
I think in the current system, this is desirable.
Okay.
But if the idea is we fix OFSTED, right? I think if we fix OFSTED and make it a collaborative experience that doesn't have these one-word gradings, then actually it's not something to be horribly terrified of, right? Because it's collaborative and actually helps the schools, because it doesn't currently help any schools. I think if that's the case, then I think they should come more frequently.
Right.
And my analogy for this is, because I was thinking about it earlier, is we've both worked in schools where we've had very official teacher observations.
Sure.
Like really official, set like 3 or 4 times in the year, and that's it. You're left alone in between. They monitor between the gradings. We've both worked in that school. And we've also both worked in a school where it's the opposite culture of it's just drop-ins every day. Or every other day, or every few days, or even every week or so, just whenever. Like we have a culture of not really many formal observations at all, but lots of just dropping in and just checking in and mini bits of feedback. And it might and it's always presented quite nicely. Maybe it's just a whole school email of, I went around the school today, I noticed a lot of you doing this. Maybe we could try this approach instead. No one feels really personally attacked. I like that more.
Yeah.
I found the harsh, like we're going to come in at set times and assess the progress between your observations. I found that horrible as an experience for me as a teacher, regardless of the outcomes. I didn't like it. Yeah. So I think if Ofsted was done right, and it was the right culture of we're actually quite friendly.
That's a really good point.
Then come in more often, and not as long. Come in for half a day, have a little walk around the school, check out a couple of the things you noticed 6 months ago or a year ago, and just see how it's going.
Because you'd have very specific next steps in this kind of report that we're talking about.
You might just come in, because last time you came in and the English curriculum, they were just starting to develop it. Yeah. And they said they were just starting to develop it. So you didn't put in your report, it's an inadequate school now because their English is rubbish. You just you put down in the action report.
So we're going to come back and
English was developing. We couldn't really comment on it too much. We can see the need for improvement there. We're looking forward to seeing what the school does. Come back in 6 months. How's the English going? Do you need support? Does the school need help? Do we need to get more involved?
Book in another 6 months when it's developed even more. Yeah. Don't expect it all done within 6 months.
Have one inspector that's kind of like, you get used to, the staff get used to. It's not just a different inspector every time.
Yeah.
Old Paul's coming back.
Yeah.
Paul's coming back. Let's show him what we've done with English.
Yeah.
And if you're nervous about it because you haven't done anything with English, then they're doing their job properly now, because then they hopefully come in and hold you accountable.
This is it.
You've had 6 months.
This is it. I think we need to not be scared of accountability. I think the big thing is a lot of people as teaching as professions don't need accountability to be doing a really good job. That's true. However, do you think that it would be sensible for a government to just take that accountability away in that case? Of course not. It just has to be done in a certain way. It's a really good point you made there, because I absolutely much prefer every single day being dropped in on, just walked through with who, yes, they're SLT, but they're a colleague and we can have a discussion with things. And I feel like they know the children better, they know you better. It's a much better experience. So frequency is linked with how you feel about who's coming, isn't it? So yeah, you're right. If it actually gets fixed, cool.
I actually have a really good example of this happening yesterday, where I was held accountable to something, but in a really nice way, and it made sense, and it was supportive. So
don't wear your blue shirt again.
I had two children were in the shed area with a TA yesterday catching up on a reading test because they missed it. The worst thing ever, isn't it, when you miss a test?
You sat in your own.
And our deputy head was just walking around like he does most of the time, and just popped his head in, and he just said, "Are these still all right out here?" Because he remembered that there was a bit of an issue with them like a few months ago, like a friendship thing, and I'd forgotten about that.
Yeah.
And it was just nice. He didn't do it remotely in a harsh way. He was like just checking in, just making sure that everything's all right. Obviously, they're sat near each other, and normally, they've had a bit of a thing.
Sure.
And I was like, oh yeah, I forgot about that. It's okay. I've got an adult there, and I'm going to put them a bit further apart. And it was just nice.
Yeah.
He was doing his job properly.
Yeah.
He was holding me accountable to make sure I wasn't forgetting about that thing.
And doesn't that reflect well on that person?
Yeah, it reflected well on him. And it didn't make me feel bad whatsoever, even though I could have been doing something wrong there. Like, it could have been, technically, it might have been a bit of a...
and that shows the way you do stuff's important. If he'd popped in, what are they doing?
Yeah.
And you're in the middle of teaching. That happens. People will go, excuse me, come over here. No, they're doing that. There's someone asleep over there. Sort it out.
But if they didn't walk around every day, wouldn't have spotted these things.
That's what I mean. It reflects well in terms of they knew that was a problem.
Yeah.
What does that show? That shows how well they know the children.
We've avoided a tiny little problem rather than we're going to come back in 4 years and all your kids are fighting. Sure. Obviously, that wouldn't work like that. But that's the analogy for OFSTED,
No, definitely. There's one little thing, by the way, before we carry on. These committee reports always say this, and I know there's not an endless money pot, but more funding. And again, it's just, that came in through the report. They're asking for more money. You need money to do stuff. If you're going to train your OFSTED inspectors properly, if you're going to move towards what they want is a more in-depth inspection. So, less frequent they're looking for here, which we've just discussed, but more in-depth where actually, like we talked about, the good things are really written about, the next steps are written about. It's very clear for everyone. And if you're going to come back, like we've been saying, if you want to offer actual support, that's going to cost money. So again, funding's obviously a really important one.
I've got a question for you. And this is a serious one. As a professional in your career, have you ever got something wrong?
Yeah.
Obviously, right? Have you ever maybe blamed a child for something and you thought they did something and they didn't do the thing you thought?
Yeah.
And you've apologized perhaps or whatever, right?
I think it's really important to apologize, by the way. Because at the start of my career, I tried not to. Sorry.
But
I'd be like, I felt weak.
Yeah.
But actually, maturing as a teacher is just saying, "Oh, I'm really sorry."
Yeah, and modeling to the children that.
Sorry, I was wrong. And saying,
I'm really sorry,
I was wrong.
Yeah, I do it all the time.
I only did it to the kids, not my friends or anything.
Yeah, not me. Certainly not me. So there's a reason for this, right? So as a professional, we make mistakes, right? We do get things wrong. We do judge things wrong. I marked a test last week and I made a couple of mistakes because the kids are going through it and they're like, "Oh, you gave me 2 here. I should have got 3 marks." Oh yeah, I'm really sorry about that. We make mistakes.
Pathetic.
Right? So this next point, don't make me cough. I'm holding it in. This next point was, I think, really important to me. It was ensure there is an efficient and independent process for schools to challenge the findings. Because it is very much, right now, the system's very much, you get what you're given.
Yeah, and then
there's your report.
You complain to Ofsted.
Yeah, you do. You can make a complaint, but people don't do it, and also they haven't got time. They're not going to sort you out. So I like the fact that they've addressed that we do need a bit of a better system because the inspectors, they are just people doing their jobs like us teachers. They will just get things wrong or miss things, or even just misrepresent it in the report, not in the way they wanted to, and the school can challenge. Or actually, the way you've worded that kind of makes it seem like this, and I don't think that's what you were trying to get across.
And again, I think that's even more important in the current system, like you're talking about, when it's so cutthroat and that one word report determines your school's fate basically and your job. If that goes wrong, there's not really a right of reply either.
But like this, you can challenge the conduct.
Yeah, completely.
Of the inspection. I think that is born from the Ruth Perry thing. Because actually, do you know what? If you have a horrible experience, like you said, that lady.
Yeah, on ITV News.
Talking about them saying, if we don't, what was it? If we don't.
It was like, if we don't try and break you, how do we know you're fit enough to run a school or something like that?
What are you talking about? Yeah.
And that's the kind of thing, though, with an independent process, an efficient independent process, that, we can get to the bottom of that. Because I remember you being like, you could barely believe that was a thing.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, cool, look, if there's an independent process and we go through it, it will find out, hopefully. Do you know what I mean? If it's a good process, that's how we get to the bottom of things.
Mad.
Yeah. Weird. Next one. carry out research to fully understand the causes of inspection-related workload pressure and assess what changes would genuinely be helpful in reducing this. I don't think we need to talk about much because you can look back at the other one. There's other committees right now which are talking about well-being being reduced.
Workload.
I think workload and well-being...
well-being being reduced.
Workload being reduced. Because, the well-being is inexplicably linked to the amount of work you've got to do, and the amount of work you've got to do is also linked to the pressures that SLT feel from OFSTED because their job's on the line.
So those are points that we just discussed were the recommendations for DFE and OFSTED together to consider. Now we've got a few bits here from that were just.
We're going to dive into OFSTED,
just
let's
OFSTED.
because
this is the juicy bit. I think.
This is the thing from a teacher's point of view. We think about OFSTED.
Yeah.
So Hayden, what should OFSTED do?
Okay, number one, consider a small increase in the notice period given to schools before inspections. This is a really interesting one. You can give me your opinion on this in a second. I want you guys to think about this as well. The committee suggested 5 days rather than the usual 24 hours to be appropriate. What are your thoughts?
We talked about this briefly. So this is one of the first times in this committee report that I've thought that it's pointless. I do genuinely think that knowing OFSTED, so you got to imagine we work in minimum weeks in a school, but usually terms, right? And when we're introducing something or a block of planning, the smallest block of planning I can think of is a 3-week block. In maths, we might have a 6-week block where it's addition and subtraction. English, it's a 3-week block where we do some independent writing towards the end. We do some reading and as we go. 5 days notice. Okay, you'll know it's next Monday. I think there's a real problem there unless Ofsted dramatically changes its culture. If it stays as it is and we move to a 5-day notice, I think instead of one night of panicking and working overload and doing loads to try and get everything ready, we'll just end up with 5 nights of that instead. And I don't necessarily think that unless this is along with something else, I don't think this would do much at all. Because when we're saying we want to know when Ofsted come, 5 days isn't solving a problem. Again, we can't implement something in 5 days. You said 2 months earlier. Even that would be difficult to implement something in for. If we knew, for example, right, if you're working in a school now, it's January, it's February, it's not January. Because I won the January challenge. It's February. If, for example, we knew, okay, listen, Ofsted are coming in December 2024. Okay. I think that for well-being and workload, we can map out. We can map that out. We can map this year out now. We can say, cool, okay, so we've got until then. We're going to work on maths for this long. History, we can start working on in time 6, because by the time we have the summer holidays and we replan stuff, that can be a thing that's working in progress. If it's 5 days, still, I'd be like, oh my God, they could come next week. And we still need to get history sorted and maths sorted and English. So instead of us mapping that out nicely and helping well-being and spreading the workload, it's still going to be, oh God, we need to do it all right now because 5 days isn't enough.
Yeah.
So I don't know when Ofsted are going to come. History's not ready. Maths isn't ready and English isn't ready. Oh, let's do it all now. And this still might be a year.
Yeah.
Whereas if we knew it was a year, you could very easily be like, oh gosh, okay, right. Workload, well-being, let's balance this out. We've got a plan. I think that's much better.
And there's not like, people have a really negative opinion about the whole, like, but then you know they're coming so you can put everything in place. It's like, yeah.
What do you think we're doing?
Yeah, that's the point.
Yeah, we're putting it in place anyway, just rushed and quicker than we ever think.
We do want to show off what we can do. What's wrong with that?
It's like a speed camera, right? People are always just like, oh, why is there a speed camera in there? They're just trying to get money. It's like, no, the vast majority of why a speed cameras there is it's a deterrent.
Yeah.
It's to slow you down. It's like, you're just slowing people down and taking their money. Yeah, that's the point. They're just going to implement stuff.
Oh, you're just giving people a year to improve their schools so that they look good when you come. It's like, yeah,
you can't fudge that. It's not about looking good. It's about being good.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's weird. You know, people in the private sector have spoke to me before about saying like, if we ever get audited, we know months in advance when we're going to get audited, so we make sure everything's in place for then. Yeah. We clean up a bit. You know, we just make sure that it's all. It gets us to do the things. Because
because the huge things you can't fudge.
No.
Because when they come in and check safeguarding, right? Let's say it's in 12 months. You know it's in 12 months.
Yep.
They're going to be looking back through the logs of 12 months.
At least.
If they know, they're not going to go, should we just look at the last week's worth of stuff? Well, that's good. That's nice. No, they're going to scroll back and pick a random day and be like, okay, what happened here? How was this filed? How was this sorted? You can't fudge it. Yep. It's impossible.
Yeah. And then they also talk to parents.
Yeah.
So if the parents are having a bad safeguarding experience in general, they're going to find out. So
yeah.
I don't know. My only opinion on this 5 day, like increasing it to 5 days, is it does just for those people who don't want to keep an OFSTED folder, which I don't think anyone should have to do. They don't want to just have stuff printed all the time and then constantly updating it. Because, we've changed this document now, so I better reprint that in case they come tomorrow.
Sure.
At least it gives them 5 days to not have to do those things all the time. Because I know, when they came for us, we did want to print out stuff because we wanted to show them our policies. We wanted to easily have on hand a lot of the stuff that we've put in place.
We don't want to rely on your memory in that point.
No, memory, or even just scrolling through your laptop and trying to show. I didn't want to do that. I just wanted to have it in front of me. And it was a bit of a faff, knowing that I only had 24 hours now to get all of this stuff printed and collated and put into a folder. If I knew I had 5 days, I might not have panicked so much and been like, okay, the first day, I just write down, what stuff do I want as a maths lead? What do I want to show him or her? And then I'll get it. Okay, tomorrow I'll print these bits. The next day I'm just going to check that policy, actually, make sure it is definitely up to date. Oh yeah, that's it. That's all good. Yeah, cool. Yeah. It just gives that little bit of leeway time to get the stuff ready. It's not time to make major changes. That's the way I'm thinking.
In that 5 days, could you have introduced a new calculation policy and have it embedded for the children when they do, when he conferences them and talks to them about it? No, of course you can't.
But I tell you what, though,
it's better than one day.
I bet there are people in positions, and I don't even think this is a terrible thing, where maybe not everyone's super organised, right? Well, they might have embedded something, but they just haven't written it down on paper. Genuinely, where it's like, I do need to write that up at some. We're doing the thing. I just haven't written it up in this nicely worded policy.
Because I've not got any time out because I'm doing 4 jobs because I'm in a really small school.
So for them, it might be like, okay, actually, I probably should write that up just because the inspector is coming and it won't look as good if I just say we do all these things.
It's the opposite. It's embedded. It's not evidence.
Yeah, exactly. So it gives them that little bit of leeway time just to do those things. And I don't know. I don't think it's terrible. I just don't think it's that good. Again, it goes down to the analogy of, all right, in this current framework, it's all right. But if we're going to fix OFSTED, this isn't really congruent with like the fixes. Like
I don't think anything would have been different. How we prepared for OFSTED and went through a dip in our well-being, I would say, knowing OFSTED were coming. I don't think anything would have changed if it was 5 days, not one.
Do you know what would have been different? I just wouldn't have been up till like 9 p.m. the night before.
Yeah, that's
printing
it.
those bits. That's it. I just would have spread
that
across
it's
the few
like,
days.
Okay, it's one of them things where it's like, all right, it's better.
Save me a day of stress,
but
maybe?
it's not, you know. Yeah. But yeah, the next one's really, really, really important. And this is, again, part of that kind of thing we talk about with potluck, where there is just a difference with smaller schools. There's, like you just said, there's not enough people to be sat having release time, getting out to do your jobs. Each person might lead 3 subjects. There's only 6 teachers in the whole school. And it kind of links in with both points here about inspectors need to properly take into account the factors like school size, like the number of its pupils from disadvantaged groups. That's going to have a huge impact on when you conference with pupils as an inspector. You're going to get less out of children who are more disadvantaged and have a lower vocabulary and aren't confident enough speaking. You're going to get less out of them than you are in a school in a catchment area full of affluent people. But the same things could be going on. Yeah. So if you're just going off face value of what the kids say, and maybe what you see in a snapshot of a day, or maybe some data, which is just lower because different backgrounds have different outcomes, I think what's really important, and this is a bit of the theme here, I couldn't believe this wasn't a thing already. Like it's doing these things. I'm like, it's not what do you mean this is a thing they should do? This isn't a thing. Obviously, if there's disadvantaged groups or high levels of SEND, if there's recruitment and retention challenges in that area, and if there are retention issues in your school, look at that as well. Like, why is there retention issues? So this all looks really good on paper. You've got all the documents. This is fantastic, but you've had a turnover of 50% every year for 4 years.
Yeah.
What's going on? You need to take full account for everything, both good and bad.
Yeah, and there is good and bad to that. Just speaking about recruitment and retention, I've always wondered that, because you do get schools with really high turnover, and it's not like 99% of the time it's because the SLT is making a toxic environment. That's why people generally leave their jobs. Some people leave for other reasons, and also the reasons could be that the catchment is different. The children, maybe you find it tricky working with that particular group of children, and you think, this is not my skill set. Someone else, whatever. But normally, it's the toxicity of the school, right?
If you're in an affluent area and there's high turnover, there's only one reason.
Yeah,
and that's going to be the culture of the school.
Yeah, pretty much. So I think Ofsted should be confident enough to be like, okay, one, we understand then why some of your staff might not have these things embedded because they're all new. Yeah. They haven't been here for 10 years working on these policies.
Or there's only 6 of them.
Yeah, 6 of them. So we'll be a bit of leniency for that, because they've all worked in this school within for 1 year or less. And then also we're now going to look into SLT a bit more, because we're a bit,
Why?
Why are all your staff leaving? Because I think these schools get away with it. In fact, it's always the outstanding schools, really, that have this. And it's like, okay, they're playing the game, but also their staff hate working there.
Yeah. They get burnt out and leave. Interesting.
Yeah. Oh, outstanding school though, because these policies are great.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know. Anyway. Yeah.
It's not manageable. I think we need a whole holistic picture there. So this next one again, it's linked to what we've just been saying. What your idea about separating out safeguarding with teaching and learning, and I think it's a vital thing. I'm completely on board with what you're saying. So this committee here is saying, okay, schools need to ensure. Ofsted needs to ensure that schools are only judged as inadequate. So that's a horrible word for your school to have said. You only use that word inadequate when there are fundamental failings in keeping children safe. I'm fully on board with this. I don't think we should be scared to say that when a school is inadequate, if they are failing to keep a child safe. That is the ultimate barometer for me. And this is saying only when that happens. Do you agree with not saying that if the maths curriculum's a bit off? Is there levels here? Would you go that far?
I think, again, it just boils down to what is this report trying to do? In one breath, it's saying get rid of the judgments. In the second breath, it's saying, we need to really review when they're called inadequate. It's like, well, can we just get rid of inadequate?
But do you think that it's okay? Because here's where I'm on the other side of the fence here then. I'm going to push you because I think one-word judgments are okay for safeguarding. I think it's very black and white.
But not for the whole
school. But I would be happy to say the safeguarding is inadequate, and that would be my judgment. My judgment is inadequate, and obviously it would have to be clearly about safeguarding. But I would be very, very on board with a highly trained group like Ofsted coming in and saying these children aren't safe. This is inadequate.
Yeah.
So for a one-word judgment there, it's fine. Do you think it's still okay, or would you?
I'm more on that side of it being okay with safeguarding because it is, to me, it's just it's totally separate from teaching. It honestly, it's almost nothing to do with my profession being judged.
Sure, but like how well you're doing.
Yeah, like how well the kids are learning and making progress. Sure. I think to me, like we don't need to. There's no need to use those words. It's really not that important to call a school inadequate at teaching and learning. Just give them action points and what's good and what's bad. Parents, when they go around the school, will get a gist of like the teaching and learning and what's going on in that school. And if they want to send their kids there, they can. They'll talk to other parents. There's loads of ways they can find out about whether they're going to like their kid in this school for that. But safeguarding, you don't get a sense of that when you're around the school. There is actually no way. You are entirely, as a parent, reliant on information from an independent inspector about how safe your child's going to be there. That is so much more important, in my opinion.
Look,
so, yeah.
I'm going to go off a bit of a side note here because me and you are going through this right now with our children. We are looking at nurseries. Yeah. For when our partners go back to work, it could be that our children have to go to nursery 1 or 2 days a week. And we're looking at nurseries right now. And I can tell you, having walked around the nursery for the first time as a parent and having it from the other foot, when I've stepped in, there are very specific things that I'm looking for, right? And the very specific things are, how happy are the children?
Yep.
And is it clear to me that there is a lot of things in place for the safety of my child? And, when the nursery leader was talking about all this amazing stuff they do in terms of their, getting ready for school, they do some numbers. I'm kind of nodding along like, okay, I know. And I'm just watching a group of kids play with like a sandpit. And then one of them decide they don't want to do it anymore and run over to a different thing and then play over there happily. I'm just saying that's not a problem. They want to go and learn over there. Cool. There's still an adult over there. There's an adult over here. And it was really interesting how my natural reactions went to just being a parent. And how I think as a teacher now, and as like thinking about how Ofsted might judge, because Ofsted go and judge nurseries as well. I think that I would want the most stringent, clear, black and white judgment on how safe kids are in a school.
Yeah. Do you know what I think? There's a middle ground almost with the safeguarding bit. I still think no judgments for teaching and learning. I really think we can just better summarize it with a detailed report.
Sure.
I think with safeguarding, there needs to be, like I said, a separate report that goes with it, attached to it, whatever, but it is a separate section about safeguarding. Sure. It has the areas that the school are doing really well. Sure. It does have some suggestions on things to improve, but almost like, like a car MOT.
Yeah.
It's like, we've got these advisories. Like we think the school system's all right, but it's a bit old. Like they could probably have a bit more of an efficient way of logging these things. But if there's anything that, like a driving test as well, major things, right, it is just a fail, and it is very much logged as inadequate or it's fine.
Yeah.
It's not even like good, outstanding. It is just It's fine. There's some advisories. Maybe there's more in other schools than others.
And there's probably always going to be advisories. Yeah,
always going to be
MOT
advisories.
about
That's
advisory.
fine.
Yeah.
You know, your tires are a bit worn.
But it's not safe for the road.
It's not safe. And those ones, it's very clear on the report whether it's
you cannot drive this. Yeah,
it might not be a word.
Yeah,
I don't know. It could be a number. It could be a color. Whatever.
Yeah. But when your car fails an MOT, we don't boot the car out.
No,
only we fix it.
Yeah, we fix the thing.
So it has to,
and
be
it's treated as urgent.
Yeah, with the safeguard, it's like this school cannot continue.
Yeah.
This cannot continue now.
Yeah.
It's a major thing. We're going to fix it before the school can continue.
And do you know what happens with cars as well? Once it's fixed, it has to be immediately MOT'd again.
Sure.
And then it's flagged up as now it's absolutely fine.
Yeah.
Rather than what the current system of schools is, requires improvement. See you in 6 years. 3 years, sorry. See you in 3 years.
That's what they're saying there.
So, now we're tarnished with this label. We fixed it within 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And now we're tarnished with this label for 3 years.
I think currently you can get offsetted more quickly than that. They do come back and check.
Yeah.
But they are saying
I suppose
here,
it's safeguarding.
they're saying here within 3 years.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's a tough one.
So our summary there is
that's good though.
Take
That's
advice from the cars, MOT system. But
basically, your children are just like cars.
Yeah, basically, my MOT report was probably more detailed, and informative to me than the entirety of the OFSTED report of 4 years of them.
That's really.
You just think, come on.
That's sad. I got this next one about inspect. This to me was the one I read, and I thought, what do you mean this came out of a commit like this? I couldn't believe this wasn't already a thing.
Sure.
But I could, because we've spoken about it. A lead inspector, you have to ensure as a minimum, this is saying, as a minimum, if we want to make Ofsted better, the lead inspector must have an expertise in the type of school they're inspecting. And in large teams going in to do an inspection, the majority of inspectors visiting a school should also have that relevant experience. For anyone who doesn't know, for example, you may well work in a junior school. Let's say you work in an infant school to exacerbate this a little bit.
Sure.
You work in an infant school, you get Ofsteded. Someone comes in, they used to run secondary school maths, multi-academy trusts, all secondary schools, had a specialist in sixth form.
Well, that's the inspector, yeah?
Yeah, that's the inspector. So their inspector's expertise is secondary provision.
Yep.
They go to Ofsted. Obviously, you need to train to become an inspector. I get that. But their expertise certainly isn't in early years.
No.
They go to an infant school and have to give judgments on early years.
Deep dive early years.
That's what we're talking about right now. And I couldn't believe that this wasn't already a thing. So how important is this if we're going to fix Ofsted?
I don't need to say much, really. You know, would I, if I was a head teacher, would I get my PE lead to go and do a full audit of the school's English lessons? Would that ever happen? Ever? No. Of course it wouldn't. Would I take it seriously if that? No, of course I wouldn't. I wouldn't take that. I wouldn't take that feedback with a pinch of salt. I wouldn't. I'm not disrespecting that person. I'm just saying you're not the most qualified person to be doing this. So why are you doing it? That's just stupid.
Yeah.
So exactly. No, I don't have much to say about that one. It's just, again, it should have. Why is that not in place already?
Yeah. No.
Well, I know why it's not in place already. Funding, Ofsted have got their own struggles. They have got their own. We haven't really mentioned that, but they do. They are also struggling. It is
mentioned in the next one about retention. So,
of course it is. Yeah, it's the next one. So the next point is commission an independent assessment of the factors affecting retention of experienced HMIs. So the inspectors. I'm going to zoom out for a minute because we're talking about actual Ofsted inspectors now. Yeah.
We're very quick to kind of jump on the bandwagon about well-being of teachers, well-being of schools. And of course, because we're teachers, it's really important to us. Do you think what's happening over the last year is also terrible in terms of the well-being of the people who work at Ofsted?
Well, it must be. It must be. Because they have got a bit of a retention crisis.
Yeah.
You know, we just said about schools with poor retention probably reflects badly on the managers, the people above it.
You can kind of separate, I suppose, the system with the people in the system.
Yeah, of course. Like the inspector at the end of the day, the inspector that we had,
bloody lovely.
He was a really nice guy.
Yeah.
He was an ex-head, extremely passionate. He'd run some extremely successful schools and done a lot of great things with schools in education. He was a really nice guy.
Yeah.
And there's a good chance that he could have walked into a school and immediately, people got their backs up and think, I hate you. I hate you.
Or walked into a school where he had to say it was not adequate.
Yeah.
There are some schools that aren't adequate, and I think at the moment it's a poison chalice. You imagine being an Ofsted inspector. You walk into a school and there are genuinely really, really bad issues at that school.
Yeah.
You don't have the training to go about it in the right way to bring it up because you're just an average Joe who's not had it. Luckily, they've introduced a lot of training for Ofsted inspectors now. But 6 months ago, God, this whole thing in the news about the head teacher. Obviously, I'm a human, so that's awful to me. Even though I'm an Ofsted inspector, obviously that would be horrendous to be involved in anything like that. Yeah. And I've got to tell this school now that there requires improvement because their safeguard is up to scratch and their curriculum is bad. Which is, some schools are like that.
Yeah.
And it must be horrendous for them. We've just spent an hour telling them whether this is good or bad. what's the answer? Really?
It's easy to tarnish people, isn't it? With one brush, like when we
people do it to teachers all the time. We get annoyed.
We're bad at doing it sometimes, and we go out of our way every now and then to correct it. So we often talk about SLT, right?
Yeah, well, and we're talking about like an abstract thing.
Yeah, and we normally talk about SLT in a negative way.
Sure.
But we're not talking about all SLT, and it's really, and we sometimes have to make that distinction of like, actually, there are some really good staff, and we
work in a school where we really get on with SLT. It's not reflection,
and it's the same with OFSTED. That you get a couple of bad eggs, bad inspectors, and they do all kind of then just get tarnished with, OFSTED are just terrible, horrible humans, aren't they? They're not all. They're actually probably the majority of them are quite nice and good at their jobs. But
it's the systems.
But going back to this point. I think it's a really good idea to have an independent assessment looking into why are the inspectors quitting, because actually they've got a bit of a retention crisis. We need good, in the same way we need good teachers to stay at schools because there's benefit in that experience and longevity. Yeah. We need the same with inspectors. We need inspectors that have seen 52 schools in the last 10 years and have got a really solid understanding. Yeah. And are really able to go in and pick out those superficial schools where it's like, nah, you put that policy in place 3 weeks ago, didn't you? And actually, it's not embedded at all, but you're telling me it is. We need those people that can do that because they've got so much experience with schools, not this high turnover of new inspectors every year because OFSTED has now become such a toxic place, probably because of the scrutiny.
Well, why would you want that job right now?
No.
I'd hate to be an OFSTED inspector right now.
Yeah.
It'd be the last thing I'd want to do.
Yeah.
I don't know. Anyway, so that's the general gist of what they've said Ofsted should do. I think, why don't we go to a really quick jingle and then we'll do our summaries of these ideas and whether we think actually will Ofsted get better or not.
Yeah, sure.
So if you want to, again in the description we'll put the link to the summary of all of these findings. I don't know, Hayden. I feel like a lot more of this will be useful than it was when we looked through the wellbeing report. I think with the wellbeing report, I think there's a lot of it where we're like, okay, all right, well, who's going to do the printing? About it was really really unrealistic and kind of, unless big funding got in place or we had new people in school to do jobs and stuff, it seemed a bit like it was just ticking a box.
Not happen, is it?
It's not realistic. No. Whereas I think with a lot of this, there's a lot of big stuff here that if Ofsted implement, I do think would have a big impact. What do you think would be, from this report, what do Ofsted have to do to get onto the right step now to properly fix themselves?
It's got to be point number one.
Yeah.
It has to be. For me, I will not take this seriously if they don't get rid of the gradings. If they don't get rid of the gradings, I don't care. I will lose interest immediately because I'll be like, all they're going to do is just reshuffle slightly how they use these words, and then we're just going to carry on. In 3 years' time, everyone will forget about this report, and then we'll just go back to your school's either rubbish, good, or all right. Do you know what I mean? If they do that, then I'll listen, and I will really think there's going to be a big change if they get rid of the gradings, because that means to me that they are actually listening to the feedback from people.
Yeah. It's frustrating, isn't it? When, like we said, you're on the front line and everyone's saying it doesn't work, and someone from the top is just saying, yeah, it does.
It's an inadequate system. Can you give me a report on
Let's
that,
give Ofsted a one-word review, shall we? Yeah. I don't know. I agree with you. I'm always hesitant before it actually happens. The proof will be in the pudding. Yeah. When we actually see change, it's nice that Ofsted is saying the right things. It's nice that the new chief inspector is saying we're listening. They're doing this thing called a big listen soon, where they're going to get lots of feedback. It can be very easy to do those things and kind of just pad foot around it and be like, we did
election's over.
Yeah, sorry, it's all done. But a big thing for me again, even if they do change the one word, even if they give us 5 days, a lot of these changes sound good. Only if Ofsted stays a bit toxic. So there has to be fundamental uprooting of how we judge schools and how we let schools crack on. I don't know.
It was definitely a weird report, and I'm going to just add to that a bit more. I did find, going through that the report didn't really seem to know what outcome it wants. Because it was kind of like the first few points were a really big change, and then the rest of it was, but if that doesn't happen, we've got to do all these things though.
Get rid of one word judgments, but also if a school requires improvement, before we're getting rid of one word judgments.
I get why they're doing it though, because the committee at the end of the day, they're probably trying to prepare for more than one outcome. Because if they can't just say, just get rid of these, then all these other points are irrelevant.
It's important to say this is just a committee of MPs putting something forward. The government and the Ofsted have to respond to them. So we await their response with bated breath.
Yeah, there was a bit more on the report, so go and check it out. We're not going to go through the DFE bit. After the whole Ofsted section, there was a section on DFE should, and there are a lot of points there. Most of them really were to do with just being accountable and just making sure this stuff happens and keeping Ofsted accountable, blah, 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 blah. But check it out.
So, Hayden, do you think, to finish off this podcast right now, do you think that Ofsted are about to change for the better?
Oh, I don't know. Is this a one-word answer?
One-word answer.
Oh, no.
One-word judgment, please.
One-word judgment. No.
Neither do I. And how sad is that?
No.
Because, again, just going to say right now, until the frameworks change and the accountability, because that's what drives a lot of work, is OFSTED. There's a new framework for OFSTED out. Oh, my gosh, we have to make sure everything does this. That's driving my well-being down the drain because we've got to replan the history curriculum. We've got to replan English. I think there has to be huge change. And I think even the one-word judgments being scrapped could end up being superficial. Unless the underlying ways that schools are judged and held to account are changed massively.
Well,
I don't know.
Guys, if you've listened this far, then I'd really like to know your opinion on. You've got to give a one-word judgment too. Do you think? Same question, in the poll on Spotify.
Let's do it if you're listening on Spotify.
Yeah. Do the poll.
We'll do a question so they can do whatever word they want.
Oh, okay then.
So, what would be your one-word judgment for OFSTED?
Yeah, mine is no, and I think Dylan's is no as well.
No. My one-word judgment would be we've got beep. We've got I don't know.
What?
Beep.
Beep. I was like, what are you talking about? What?
The judgment would be. How do you judge?
Why are we going back to cars? Beep.
Right, we're losing our minds. Should we finish up there?
Yeah.
Guys, see you next week. Thanks for listening. Follow us on Instagram at Teach Sleep Repeat Podcast, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.